What's up, guys? It's Collin, and today we're going to be learning about why infrared, or as we call them, laser thermometers, are the best option for your reptiles. When we talk about measuring temperatures in our reptiles' enclosure, I think it's really important we take a look and take a step back at how this technology has progressed over the years. So there's several types of thermometers that are available on the market, and we have many different options you can use. So the first type, or the oldest type of thermometer, is what we call the analog thermometer. This is that type that kind of has a dial that's similar to like a clock. Basically, this little needle here measures the ambient temperature and adjusts accordingly. So this is what we're going to call a static thermometer, meaning it's going to basically be positioned in your animal's enclosure and it's going to read one set temperature. With this thermometer, unfortunately, what will happen is a lot of times people will have it on the back glass, and what that's actually doing is measuring the ambient air temperature. So that is a noteworthy thing to know and measure in your animal's enclosure. But a lot of times what we're looking to actually measure most accurately with reptiles is what we call a basking, or that's a true surface temperature. So these guys, they're going to serve a really good purpose as far as measuring ambient air temperature in the enclosure, but as far as specific spot temperatures, these guys tend to fall short. An advancement over an analog thermometer would be using what we call a digital thermometer. So here we have what's called a min-max thermometer. This is made by ZoomEd. So what this thermometer does, it's a digital thermometer, but also what it's going to do is it's going to show you the maximum high temperature and minimum low temperature over the course of a 24-hour period. So this style thermometer, being a digital thermometer, as you can see, it has this little probe here, and this probe you'll want to position. You can either has an advantage in the fact that you can position this on a basking surface, or it does include a suction cup. You can position it on the back of your enclosure for like an ambient air temperature. These guys are also waterproof too, so if you need to measure a water temperature or anything like that, these are good. One thing about the probe system is it does take a little while to catch up to the temperature or whatever you're measuring. So for example, if I set this guy up in our bearded dragon enclosure here and I laid that probe on top of the basking surface, it would take several minutes to get an accurate reading with that enclosure, simply because this probe actually has to warm up to the temperature that the device is going to read. And then we have the third, or the most advanced type of thermometer. So this is what we call a laser thermometer, or like an infrared temp gun thermometer. This is by far the most accurate way to measure temperatures in your reptile's enclosure. We highly recommend these for several reasons. So the first advantage of these guys is if you have multiple reptiles or multiple enclosures, it can be great, especially that way you don't have to have 5 digital thermometers in every single tank to measure all your surfaces. So what the advantage of this is too, when we go through an animal's enclosure, we can individually temp gun out all the surfaces, so I can get a cool side temperature and I can get a basking side temperature just within a couple of seconds of each other. As long as you hold the device properly, usually within about 6 to 10 inches, that's going to give you the maximum amount of accuracy. So for that reason, these guys are, in my opinion, they're clearly the best, simply because you can measure the cool side and the hot side basically within a few seconds of each other. You don't have to worry about switching back and forth or having 3 different thermometers in your tank. One thing I will say about any thermometer in general, our pro tip would be, if you're going to be using any sort of reptile thermometer in your home, you're going to want to make sure it's accurate and calibrated. So the way that I normally recommend doing that is you'll see whatever your home's thermostat is, and then you can usually set your thermometer, or in this case, you could take your temp gun, and if you temp gun near where the thermostat is located on the wall, if you take the calculated distance between those two numbers, so let's say your wall thermostat's set to 71 degrees and your temp gun reads 73, then subtract 2 degrees off of whatever your temp gun's reading, and that's going to be your calibrated temperature. Usually most temp guns are calibrated plus or minus 2 degrees, so that's usually going to mean they're either 2 degrees up to 2 degrees below or 2 degrees above what the actual true temperature is. But for 99% of reptiles, that's still going to be within a safe range. So just remember, whenever you're using one of those digital thermometers or an analog thermometer, keep in mind the calibration and just be sure to check it and compare it to your home's true temperature. If you have any questions about thermometers, be sure to ask an associate or stop by in store. Have a great day.